What's up, guys? This is Post-Production Pie with SLRLounge.com. We are starting a new weekly series on constructive critique. This is where we're going to basically run through submissions in our constructive critique area of the forum, and we're going to talk about them out loud just because it's easier for me to be able to critique the images and talk about exactly what I am kind of addressing rather than typing it out in these huge long paragraphs. And it'll be cool for everybody else because you guys can see your work featured on the YouTube channel as well as on our page as well. Now, to participate, it's very simple, guys. When you want to submit images into the forum, just go to the main page, which we're at here, go to the forums, click there. It'll take you right to the SLR Lounge forums, and it's all free. And this is a great chance for you guys to submit your images for constructive critique, not only by SLR Lounge staff, but also by your peers. Now you're going to click on this constructive critique section on our forum, and we do have a little sticky here. I want you guys to make sure that before you participate, read the rules. It's very simple. We ask that everybody's kind to each other, that you state things objectively. When you have preferential things and you're critiquing on preferential items, tell them that. In my opinion, I think that this is how it should be. And also make sure that you're only posting one image per thread. That way, when you're asking for critique, we're not having to basically look over an entire website or 5 images and try and critique all 5 of them. All right, so just be sure to read that over before you start. And let's go right from the top. We're going to start with this Prague Castle submitted by Christoph. Now, I like this shot. Christoph, I think you did a great job, and I know you mentioned that basically you produced it to have a warm field because you kind of recognized that there really wasn't much of a sky or much detail in the sky to work with, and that's great. I think you did a great job in kind of your vision for the post-production and really emphasizing the strong points in this image. Now, from a landscape photo standpoint, or from critiquing it from that standpoint, it'd be nice to have, say, some foreground detail in this image because it looks kind of like a standard walk-up shot, just a shot that you would take. The walk-up shot is kind of what you would take if you just walked up to something, whipped out your camera. You didn't change your perspective or really your kind of framing and crop much. You just shot it. So that's the walk-up shot. Now, granted, there's a lot of considerations that we don't know about that Christoph might have been dealing with. I know Christoph has had a lot of great images that he submitted, and probably in this shot, you're dealing with a situation where you really don't have an interesting foreground to place into the image. Maybe you just have a rail in front of you or something that prevents you from really composing a more interesting shot. So on that standpoint, I'd say it could be a little bit more interesting, but again, it really depends on what you're working with. So it was a good exposure. You did a good job in the post-production. I'd say, from a shooting side, it'd be great if there was just a little bit more kind of oomph in that overall composition and kind of just frame itself. All right, let's go back to constructive critique section. Let's go to the next image. Now, this shot was the Sommerfeld photo shoot by Machiavelli. And I really like this image, and what Machiavelli did when this was, and it's a really cool thing to do sometimes, is he boosted his ISO to basically add grain directly into the image. Now, this is a practice that I would typically kind of caution against because while you're adding grain, you're also doing a number of other things when you boost ISO that are irreversible. Okay, so when you boost ISO, you're adding your grain, of course, which is destroying detail on your image. But the other thing that's happening is that you're actually reducing the overall dynamic range, and this causes basically color shifting issues. It causes an overall reduction in the dynamic range, basically from the shadows to the highlights in your image. So for example, at ISO 100, maybe you're capturing 10 stops of dynamic range. At 200, maybe it's 9 stops. Well, at 800 ISO, you're probably capturing around 6 to 7 stops of dynamic range, or somewhere in that area. Basically, I'm ballparking these numbers just so you guys understand that boosting ISO up this high is going to affect overall color and dynamic range significantly. Grain is something that's super easy to add in post-production, and so there's kind of no reason to use ISO to add that to the image. But that being said, I like that you're being creative with it. And he also mentioned that he's trying to use the flare and be creative with that, as well as dealing with very small areas to shoot in. Basically, this area is as he described, is a very small area. He's composing tight. He's using a shallow depth of field to give the illusion that this child is in a field when in reality she's not. It could be like a parking lot or something like that. And it's something that we do a lot, guys. Half of our shots, they're actually shot like, in a parking lot or off the side of a street somewhere. And we're just shooting in a way that, the depth of field as well as the overall composition, the field of view is controlling kind of the feel of the image, and you don't feel like it's maybe next to a street when in reality it is. All right, so I love what you've done there. Overall, the composition's a little bit strange just because we have the subject that's placed slightly off center. So we're not using the rule of thirds. We're not kind of using symmetry. It's just a little bit off. The other thing that I think in the composition that I don't quite like is the placement of the flare. Oftentimes I'll use a flare too because I like that artistic element of the shot. But this placement of the flare and the way it's coming over her face is something that's becoming rather distracting. Now, Machiavelli also submitted another image, same scene with a flare placement a little bit off to the side. And the flare placement is great. The only issue here is that we have a streak from that flare crossing over the eye. But again, I like the placement of this flare better than in that first image. I would just be careful to make sure that we're not getting streaks over, kind of areas of the face. That being said, I love what he did in post-production. I think the post-production look is great. He mentioned they used the Lightroom 4 preset system, but of course, that's not necessarily that you use it to get critique on your photos. I love the warm look to it. This one I'd say has a little bit too much red, particularly in kind of the under areas of the arm. I'd really look in those shadowy areas and make sure that you're not getting too much reds or too much greens in these kind of shadow areas. Just kind of watch the vibrance on that. But overall, I really like what you did with the post-production. I think it's a great shot. And this one in particular, I love just her expression, what she's doing. She's got a little, wheat thing, which hopefully that's sanitary. Maybe she's got a little bug in her mouth too. It's protein, guys. It's protein. And they're clean. All right, so I love kind of the look, the placement. It's very whimsical. I just love what she's doing as far as playing around with that. The subject matter is awesome in this photo. Great job here. Let's go on to one more. So let's drop back to constructive critique. Let's go on to, let's see. We'll actually do two more. So let's go first edit with Lightroom and post here. Now this is a creepy photo submitted by Macroman. And this is his first edit with Lightroom and his post here, which is awesome because it's actually not a bad edit at all. And what he's done is basically clipped out everybody in the background. So using a brush, you're basically painting over, reducing exposure. And then he highlighted kind of the detail by lifting out the contrast, adding additional detail and everything. And it's great. It works much better than the original photo. I'd say, in this situation, you don't really have much to work with. You're taking a single shot. And this is kind of all you can do is you can, bust your direct flash. This isn't a studio setup and anything like that. We can't add hair lights and backlights and make it all crazy. So you're doing the most that you can with it, and you did a great job in post-production by kind of making it even better than the original was. So good job there. All right, let's go on to one more. Baby photography feedback, please. All right, sort of new to baby photography. Would love to get some feedback on this shot. And I love this shot. This is a great image. And the overall lighting, the overall production on it, everything is awesome. I'd say the baby's expression is a little bit on the boring side. It'd be great if I think this is a she because she does have a bow in her hair, and I'd expect that you probably wouldn't do that with a boy. So she has kind of this neutral expression. It'd be great if she was smiling, maybe if you had some props over the camera. Sometimes, we've done baby photography before. We've done quite a bit of it. We know that with infants, it's really difficult to coax out of them the expressions that you might want. You have to be so quick. So I understand the difficulty in that. Overall placement of the hands and everything is fine. My main critique here is that with infants, we're dealing with basically children or with human beings that have very disproportionate features. Basically, infants are going to have bigger heads, they're going to have big bellies, kind of chubby arms. Their features are very disproportionate to start with, and generally we want to shoot them from angles that kind of are a little bit more flattering. Now there's nothing wrong with this angle, but the only thing is that we're shooting slightly bottom up, it looks like. So slightly the camera, not bottom up as far as height, but we're shooting from the bottom of the chin towards the face, basically. So camera placement is probably like over the stomach area, and you're shooting up towards the face. And the problem with this is that with the stomach composed right at the bottom of the frame, it's gonna kind of appear to be larger, and the way it's extending, it looks like it continues far beyond the edge of the frame. So it basically makes her tummy, kind of gives the illusion that her tummy's a lot bigger than it probably is. Babies have big tummies, but probably not this big. All right, so that's the only thing is that it kind of makes her look like she has this never-ending tummy with this position. But overall, I love the lighting. She has beautiful catch lights in her eye. You could probably see the photography reflection if you look close enough. And it was a really great job. I love the soft look to it in post-production. You did a great job in making sure that it stayed natural and kind of true to the actual skin tones and everything like that. It's done very well as far as that. The only thing I'd be careful about is just the cropping. Also, make sure, aside from camera angle and crop for the kind of tummy, one thing that we typically want to avoid is cropping at joints. So right here we have a cropped elbow. On this side, we're also cropping at the elbow and also a little bit on the hand. I'd shoot a little bit tighter or a little bit further back, either one, but kind of don't crop at these in-between parts of the body because it looks kind of like amputations. And that's also kind of the issue that we're getting right here. All right, so great job on that photo, and hope you all enjoyed this little session of critique. If you guys want to have your images critiqued, again, submit them to constructive critique section on the forum, and we will get to them in our next video. All right, we'll see you guys next time.